yourself a cold one.
Let's strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
We made it. It's here. It's Daddy Soda time, and we've got real, actual college football games this Saturday that count and everything. It is the College Draft Podcast, 3 podcasts in one, presented by DraftKings, of course, America's #1 rated sportsbook app. And we will get into our picks against the spread momentarily. By we, I really mean he. Emory Hunt, the master of all he oversees at footballgameplan.com. The guy goes to every game there is. He must have like that old Star Trek thing. Just beam me over, Scotty. Beam me up to each game he goes to. He's at F-Ball Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. He lives on CBS Sports HQ. He's always available, footballgameplan.com/2022 draft guide if you want to get in early on what I think is the best draft guide in the business, which also makes him the best guy to talk about preseason football in the business because he knows all the guys. Emory, we're here though, man. Like, we have actual games, college football games that will be going on Saturday to talk about on today's show.
I'm excited about it because it's across the board too. You have FBS games, some FCS games, and it's technically it's week 0, but it's the start of what should be a normal 2021 season, knock on wood.
I mentioned this earlier. I'll expound upon it a little bit. We're going to talk about the biggest college football games every week and throw a sleeper or two in there. So we're a college football podcast. We're going to tell you about the best prospects, the best NFL prospects in those games. So we're an NFL draft prospect. And then Emory's going to make his pick against the spread. So we are a college football betting podcast. 3 podcasts for the price of 1. And that price, by the way, as many of you know, is free. Like, totally free, which is amazing. Love those of you that check us out via social media. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. And I guess before we dive into these games, and the first one's going to be 1 o'clock on Saturday, Nebraska and Illinois, which is a sneaky important game for both those teams, especially Nebraska. They cannot lose to Illinois in Brett Bielema's first game. I did want to get your thoughts, Emory, on week 0.
You know, it's interesting that we're starting week 0 as opposed to just calling it week 1. You know, and usually week 0 was supposed to be that spotlight game. I don't think we had Nebraska and Illinois in mind when you're talking about designing a week 0, but here we are. I just wish we put more games in week 0. And honestly, if we're going to expand the playoffs, let's utilize week 0 as quote unquote week 1. Cut the regular season to 10 games, and let's go play more playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea is let's whet the appetite a little bit. I mean, it's great for these teams: Nebraska, Illinois, UConn, Fresno State, Hawaii, UCLA, Utep, New Mexico State. Kind of interesting. The games are 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3:30. Maybe there aren't more at night, Emory, because I think there's a bunch of NFL preseason games at night. So they probably thought, yeah, we don't want to mess with that.
Right. You're competing against the NFL no matter what level it is. Preseason, wild card weekend, regular season, people will watch the NFL. As much as people talk bad about the preseason, they are watching, and that's something you definitely don't want to compete with.
Yeah, by the way, the NFL DraftKings, they now have this deal, $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any week 1 NFL games. They already have the week 1 lines up, and you can go ahead and get $200 in free bets. I'm sure they still have that for college as well. Just use the promo code ROSS to get your free $200 in free bets on the DK DraftKings Sportsbook app. All right, let's dive into it, Emory, and we will start with Nebraska and Illinois. Nebraska is a 7-point favorite in this game. But talk to me first about some of the guys we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, you talk about Samari Toure. We talked about him before. When you talk about someone that transferred from Montana, he was their big time playmaker, and I think he's going to be an instant playmaker for Nebraska, taking over for Wandell Robinson, who transferred out and went to Kentucky. So you think about someone like Toure, who was dominant at the FCS level, and now is going to be expected to be a big time player for Nebraska. I think he's going to be good for Adrian Martinez to really get their passing game going. And you talk about Daniels on the defensive line, Damien Daniels. He's a big dude. I just want to see him utilize his hands better because he's tough to move off the spot. He's a big girthy guy and he gets good ball get off, but he doesn't always bring his hands with him. And you want to see him get better in that regard because if he does, he'll be even more disruptive than he was toward the back end of last season.
So I forget, where'd Torre come from?
University of Montana.
That's right. And dude, that's bad for Nebraska. They lost Wandell Robinson.
Yeah, he
I mean,
was
that
a
was a huge get for them to get him. He is a talented guy. I thought he'd be like their Rondell Moore. I mean, McCaffrey's transferred out. I must tell you, I thought the Scott Frost era would go better at Nebraska than it has so far.
I really did, man, especially since he was known for the recruiting and developing and made UCF into that powerhouse. Then he goes out to Nebraska. It was tailor made for him to get back to the developing that we used to know Nebraska to be about in their heyday, and it just hasn't transpired. People are leaving Nebraska, and that's something that you never saw from that program in its heyday, or even when they were going up and down with Bill Callahan.
It's a really good point. Really good point. All right. What about Illinois? Who are we watching on the other side for the Illini?
Two guys, Sidney Brown, the safety, and Doug Kramer, the offensive lineman. Sidney Brown, it's funny, and I hate to sometimes the comparisons just work because of how you watching them, but he's wearing number 30. His last name is Brown. I just couldn't. I was like, man, this dude is always Johnny on the spot, like Mike Brown was when he was with the Chicago Bears. I want to say that was 2001, where he had 5 game-winning interceptions in a row. Just came out of nowhere and was able to pick the ball off. But he's one of these playmakers for that defense. I was well schooled by Lovie Smith, so Brett Bielema gets a guy that plays a good game, a smart, instinctive game. He's a Canadian kid, so he's going to be a CFL prospect as well from London, Ontario. If you're not familiar with that, that's where Western University has been. That was what I first went to Canada I want to say 2013. I went out there to cover their East-West Bowl, which is their senior bowl they played before the season in May. Had fantastic duck out there, by the way. So with the Western, he's where West University is. But so keep an eye on him for the CFL draft as well. And the center Kramer, he was injured last year and had COVID, but when he played, he started 3 games. When he played, he was excellent. And he's someone that has been an all Big Ten performer at center. And so I think you're going to see him regain that status and find himself being a mid-round draft pick because he was really good firing off the football, especially in the run game.
So here's my question to you. I'm just curious. What did you think of the Brett Bielema hiring for Illinois?
I'm a big Bielema fan. I love what he did, at Arkansas. I love obviously what he did at Wisconsin, and I think he's going to do a great job at Illinois. It's a tough place to recruit, man. People think Illinois and think that place is in Chicago. It's not. That's in the middle part of the state. And I found it funny. I was reading an article that was like, "Yo, Bielema's going to put a heavy emphasis on Illinois recruiting. That's something Lovie Smith didn't do. So he said we got to protect home." And then 13 of his top recruits came from Florida, Georgia, Texas. He had 2 recruits from Illinois. So yeah, put a fence around the state because it's tough to recruit there. And it's also just one of those schools. Illinois is one. It's people talk about Northwestern academically. Illinois is right there as well. So you have to have it on both ends. You have to have the talent and also the smarts to get in there in a state that's very limited as far as prospects are concerned. So I think he's going to do a solid job, as solid as you can at Illinois. But I say that, but we did see Ron Zook, have success at Illinois, bringing in your Juice Williams and those guys, and Mikael LaShore, and the kid that was with the Steelers, the running back. Um, man, I forgot his name, but he reminded me of Garrison Hurst.
Rashard Mendenhall.
Mendenhall, exactly. So
he got Aurelius Ben,
really has been the wide.
Vontae Davis.
Yes, exactly. And so you
By
had
the way, a lot of that is because he hired Mike Loxley as his OC.
makes sense because they both had a connection from Florida. So but yeah, so you can have spurts of success at Illinois, but your work is cut out for you.
I was a little surprised they went the retread route again. I mean, they had just hired Lovie Smith, who's like an NFL retread. Now they go for Bielema. I probably would have gone for like a Lance Leipold or a Jeff Monken or somebody like one of these guys going to like 4 programs and won everywhere they've been, right? Like, and that's what but I think they want bigger names. I think it's like an alumni thing. I don't know. Anyway, for this game, Nebraska is a 7-point favorite. Emory, what are you doing here?
Laying those points with Nebraska. As much as he gets criticized, Adrian Martinez, I feel as though, is a better quarterback than Brandon Peters. So I'm going to trust Martinez because he's a dual threat guy. And this is probably the must-win game. I know it's cliche to say, but Nebraska needs a win probably more so than Illinois. So I think we'll see Nebraska go all out in this one against the Illini.
It's a good point. I think you're right. I think it kind of is a must-win game. All right, let's get to a team and a game. I'm going to do 4 of their games this year. So I'll be watching on Saturday when UConn travels to California for the first time ever to take on Fresno State. UConn hasn't played in like 638 days or something crazy. Fresno State, they were 500 last year. They actually have some decent guys. Like their quarterback was a little up and down, Harner. But I love their running back, Ronnie Rivers. And I think Fresno has some talent. Let's start with that. Let's start with Fresno and the running back, Ronnie Rivers.
And Fresno has always been, that's been one of my favorite programs, since I've watched college football, because it's always got some dudes out there in the valley, and they just play good brand of football. I know Pat Hill was a big part of that. Like, you're going to get run game and play action pass, and the ball's going to go downfield. So, that's just a tradition of Fresno State. And I'm glad to see them still being able to recruit that type of athlete. And Rivers is someone that has, really good balance for a back. He's a shorter guy, but you're not going to knock him over. You're just going to knock him to the side. He's breaking arm tackles. He got good vision, good patience for the position, and he can catch the football out of the backfield. So I think he's a solid all-around back. People are gonna knock his size, but I feel as though size is not a skill. And I just like how he plays the game. Just plays under control and just a really good back overall.
I was very impressed with him last year in the 2 games I did. I think one time they played at UNLV. They also hosted Colorado State. They won both those games handily. He has tremendous balance. He's a lot more powerful than you think he's going to be. Really good out of the backfield. I didn't know he had another year. I mean, is he a guy? I have to look it up if he's a guy that's taking advantage of that extra year of eligibility. I think he wants to break all of his dad's records. His dad has like all the Fresno State rushing records, and obviously they only played 6 games last year because of COVID. I think Ronnie wanted to go back so for the rest of his life he could say to his dad he got all his records.
Smart man. I am here for that level of petty. And yeah, he was a senior last year. He's one of those guys that I had a grade on last year, and then he decided to go back. So I just moved him over to 2022. So yeah, he's definitely taking advantage of that extra year.
Okay, what about UConn they got a D lineman that caught your eye in Travis Jones.
Now you talk about, Damien Daniels of Nebraska not using his hands well. Travis Jones uses his hands very well and gets off blocks and is very good at the point of attack. So you see him constantly in on run stops, doing a good job of just collapsing the pocket. I think he's a better run defender than he is a pass rusher. But man, when you talk about someone that can initiate contact, withhold himself at the line of scrimmage, and then get off the block and make a play. You like that about a defensive tackle, especially coming from a program where, you know, there's not that many, dynamic playmakers, but it starts up front, and Jones is a real good one.
I'm really looking forward to watching UConn. The one thing I remember asking Randy Edsall this. They developed a lot of guys in his first stint at UConn. I mean, the William Beatties, and they had one year where they had like 4 guys go round 1 or round 2 from UConn. Yep. Donald Brown, Darius Butler, a D end whose name escapes me right now. I want to say like the Dolphins took him in the second round. He didn't really materialize. And then Will Beatty with the Giants. But UConn, who never even get a 4-star guy. They get like a lot of 2-star guys. And they had 4 guys go round 1 or round 2, which I thought was incredible that year. And Butler had the best career of them all. Donald Brown was kind of up and down, Beatty up and down. And then the defensive end was like Darius Moore or something like that. But yeah, that was always kind of their specialty. When Randy Edsall was there the first time. So I'll be curious. I know this. I have a lot of respect, Emory, for Randy Edsall. They will offer kids, because I do recruiting stuff for Go Big Recruiting, and I pay attention to Pennsylvania. They'll offer kids that nobody else has offered. And then I'll watch and I'll be like, oh, yeah, I can see that. Like they find kids other people don't know about.
And to me, I hate this part of the media landscape. You see so much negativity coming out about the program, people talking about they should cancel football or drop football. Like, man, every place can't be Alabama. And I'm glad you brought up Randy Edsall and the development part of it, because that's what's going to give them a chance to be successful and competitive. That's what's going to give Kansas a chance with Lance Leipold to be successful. It can be done at programs. It's going to take a little bit of work, and you have to hire good coaches and trust your development of these guys once they get in. It's what we're seeing with Northwestern, is what you're seeing with these underrated programs that are coming up and now playing consistent football. It's about the development of the talent, not just the acquisition of the talent. So glad you brought that up, man.
So Fresno State is a 27.5-point favorite, Emory. 27.5. I don't know how he even set a line on UConn. They haven't played in forever. Like, some of these kids might have gained 30 pounds. I mean, it's 27.5. What are you doing?
Well, here's the thing. You touched on it. They hadn't played in almost 2 years. Fresno State played last year. Fresno State is a very good football team. This is about right for the line. So, yes, lay those points for Fresno State.
Wow. Okay. How about Hawaii and UCLA? Hawaii's got a couple running backs you like?
Yeah, Kelvin Turner Jr. When you're going to watch him and you're going to hear the name Alvin Kamara a lot, because he's that versatile. He can get down the field and be a threat in the passing game. He's a good runner, good above average, speed and quickness and vision and contact balance. All of those things that you like about the position, he does it. So he has a wide array of skill set that he's bringing to the table, and one of the best backs in the country. He's on the Senior Bowl watch list. Wouldn't surprise me to see him end up there as well. And another senior, Dedrick Parson, out of he was from Howard. So I did a like 5 of his games when he was a freshman, walk on at Howard, and ended up being their leading rusher, their starting tailback. This dude has legitimate vision and shakes. So he sees everything. He has hammerhead shark periphery. He has bird's eye view perspective on the line of scrimmage. Like, you're watching this and calling the game as a broadcaster, so you're seeing it from an all 22 perspective. He sees the same thing. So he sees that backside cutback. He sees that crash in defensive, and he's just going to cut off him and just shoot down the rail. So this dude he grad transferred to or transferred out of Howard and went to Hawaii. Followed his OC, Brennan Marion, who's now the receivers coach at Pitt. But he's out there now. So Hawaii has 2 tremendous tailbacks. I'm excited to see how Parson does with the Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah, you think about it now, it's like, why don't more guys go to Hawaii, dude? It's like
If I
it's
had
a full ride to Hawaii to
if
play college football.
if I had my choice of being a college football head coach, I always see Hawaii as a sleeping giant. Think about what you have out there. You have unlimited access to offensive linemen and defensive linemen. I don't understand why Hawaii doesn't lead the country in rushing every year. We'll go out there and with 9 linemen, a quarterback, and a big tailback that's like 6 feet 245, and we about to dominate up front. Nothing but power and gap all day. So you're right. Plus, you're at the beach. So all you need is like 5 skill players. They want to walk around with their shirts off anyway. So you sell them on the beach. You could win at Hawaii. You could win a national championship at Hawaii.
All right, for UCLA, I feel like we talked about this guy a couple weeks ago, but for the people that missed that episode, maybe they're just tuning in now that there's games. Maybe they're watching or listening. They can watch, by the way, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Maybe they're watching or listening now because you're making the picks against the spread. You like laying points a lot more than I do, by the way. At any rate, let's get to
big spread.
UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yeah, we talked about him on our Pac-12 preview. Someone that plays a really good game when you watch him play, man. It's like, man, this dude has a legitimate game. And we're in a situation where you're looking for a senior quarterback to come out of nowhere. That's a new thing now. Who's going to be the next Joe Burrow? Who's going to be next X, Y, and Z? Thompson has a chance because he plays a really good game. He just has to minimize those bouts of inconsistency where you're like, yo, what was that? Whether it's a incomplete pass or an ill-advised throw, but he has all the physical tools, and UCLA can put up points. I always point back to that USC game where he was at his best. So if we can get that level of play the entire season, he's going to start to work himself into that conversation because he's played a lot of football, has good leadership skills, and isn't afraid of the competition. So we saw him play well against Colorado, very good secondary. We saw him play well against USC in a rivalry game. So that's someone to keep an eye on moving forward.
I feel like he's been starting a quarterback for Chip Kelly and UCLA for 4 or 5 years now. I mean, he's been there a long time.
Absolutely, and that's the whole part of it. You kind of want someone that has played a lot, seen a lot, and has done a lot. And he's been productive. He has also gotten better every year, so his trajectory is going in the right direction.
So UCLA is favored by 17. The game is at UCLA. So Hawaii's taking the flight. You laying the points again?
Hawaii is tricky, man. This is one of these teams where you just like, which Hawaii team will show up. But defensively, I'm not there yet on Hawaii. So UCLA, I feel comfortable. Experience at quarterback, very good passing game. You're gonna like this, Ross. Laying the points with UCLA.
So far, you have laid 51.5 points in 3 games. 17, 27.5, and 7. All right, last but not least, we got Utep and New Mexico State. Who are we watching on Utep?
Walter Neal Jr., the cornerback, he transferred from Kansas State. He's also a Senior Bowl list watch guy, Senior Bowl watch list guy. Very active corner. He's someone that you call like a gnat back there. He just flies around the football, but despite being 175 pounds, he's definitely not afraid to tackle. You're going to get that from a Kansas State defensive back. You see AJ Parker is with the Lions as an undrafted rookie free agent, and he's playing really well. He may even make the team. So you're getting a lot of toughness from that position, and they need stars out there on defense for UTEP. I thought UTEP could have flirted with a winning season last year, but their defense failed them. They were in a lot of games and just couldn't close them out. So I think they're going in the right direction, and getting a guy like Neal Jr. Is definitely a step toward that goal.
I cannot wait to watch these games next week and see or on Saturday and see. It makes it so much more interesting because some of these games are like projected blowouts.
Right.
With you laying the points like this. You're making me pull my hair out It's a good thing 2 out of 3 men who experienced some form of hair loss by the time they're 35 have a solution that I've been taking for years, which is why my hair looks so good on the show or on the Eagles preseason games. It's called Keeps. It's a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair. Look, we all know FDA-approved medications. That's been in the news a lot recently. There are only 2 FDA-approved medications that can prevent hair loss. Keeps offers both. I'm telling you, I had the same amount of hair, if not more, that I had 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors. Look, treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results. So start early. Like the number one thing I would tell anybody, forget even Keeps for a second. If you have any doubt, start. Now, I personally like Keeps because they gave me my 2 FDA-approved medications sent to my house. Go to keeps.com/draft to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's KEEPS.com/draft to get your first month free. Keeps.com/draft. Who is the keeper, Emory, on New Mexico State's team this year?
So offensive lineman and Sage Dockstader, big offensive line, like 6'7", 340. Dude was a CFL second round draft pick this past May, but opted to come back for that extra season, to increase his chances of getting drafted in the NFL. So a Canadian kid, high CFL draft pick. I think he's probably better suited to play guard or maybe right tackle. He's been playing left tackle. I think he can kick inside. I think that better suits him and his skill set moving forward. But it'll be interesting to see, how he plays this year. He had a little bit of an injury issue in his career, but he has played a lot of games and has started, for a good bit of time out there at New Mexico State. And he was a part of that team that got to the bowl game. So I want to see how he closes out this year and if he increases his NFL stock, because his CFL stock is sky high. He got drafted by the Argonauts in the second round. So that's pretty impressive.
So Utep is laying 9 points. Are you doing it again, Emory?
I see UTEP and New Mexico State as one and the same. Both programs have just been inconsistent. I see this one being a tight one. So I'm going to take New Mexico State in the points here.
Okay, taking New Mexico State and the points. New Mexico State plus the 9. And I'm curious about that UCLA game. What's your favorite game this weekend?
My favorite game is one. It's going to be the MEAC SWAC Challenge. It's Alcorn State versus North Carolina Central. Alcorn didn't play in the spring like the rest of the FCS or SWAC, and no one in the MEAC as a conference played in the spring as well. North Carolina Central has a good running back in Isaiah Totten, and Alcorn is arguably the best team in the SWAC with Fred McNair, who is one of the most underrated coaches in college football. They have a fantastic quarterback. He's like the FCS version of Levi Lewis, who plays at Louisiana, and Felix Harper. He's a left-handed, smaller quarterback, like 5'10", about 185 pounds. But you talk about a true point guard at the position. Felix Harper should be an outstanding talent to watch. And I think he's going to be in the running for Black College National Player of the Year and also for the Walter Payton Award, which is the FCS equivalent to the Heisman Trophy.
Absolutely love it. Place those bets at DK Sportsbook. Get the keeps.com/draft so you keep your hair. Good luck to Emory. Good luck to all of you guys this weekend. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We're all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.